Hey Roy,
Hey, how you doing? How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Very well. You've got a better microphone than I have, Tim. Good to see you. Good to see
Well, yeah, but I'll be honest with you. This microphone actually doesn't work for these Instagram lives. I'm simultaneously recording my voice, so when I edit it and post it on YouTube in podcast format, my voice will sound a lot better than the grainy microphone on my phone.
you. Got you. Got you. Understood. Superb.
Yes. Yeah, and
Yeah,
I
you're making me feel like I'm back at work, working again.
No, I'm sorry. I know you're on vacation right now, so that's I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day, out of your vacation to join me here, just to have a nice casual chat, and see if we can figure out a way to help people out plan a trip to Scotland.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm not a tour guide. I'm
No,
not a travel agent of any kind, but I assume that you're talking about from the perspective of whiskey enjoyment, right?
yeah, exactly. And I mean, you're not a tour guide, obviously, but just as somebody who, you're from Scotland, you embrace, you're part of the culture of Scotland, and to get your perspective, what you think common pitfalls are, what you think the best way to experience it is, and just, just some tips on how to make that experience a little better. And I'll be, transparent with the viewers that I am going to Scotland in a couple of weeks, so this could be more for me than the viewers, but, you know, hopefully some value gets taken out of it. But before we get into that, I just want to congratulate you on a couple of things. First, your very successful bottling of your Lagavulin 10. I know that sold out quickly and was a huge success. So congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
And I know Dram Face has been taken off and is just getting really wonderful feedback and growing a lot quicker than you guys thought it was going to be. So congratulations on that really cool platform that you guys have.
Thank you very, very much. I'll pass on your grateful, your very kind words to the entire team. Yeah, it's going really, really well, Tramfeast. That's what I've been doing tonight. Um, all of these things take so much more time than you might imagine,
Oh
but they're
yeah.
worth it, right? Especially if they're fun.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
No, I can definitely sympathize with that. I try to make more content for my platform. I try to dabble in YouTube and whatnot, but it just takes up so much of my time that I have to focus on one thing or the other. And I like doing these live streams once a week with getting guests like you on here and just kind of building those relationships and just chatting. I think that's for me that's the most fun so far. And in kind of that vein, your Dram Face podcast is wonderful. It's it's the only whiskey podcast I listen to, and it's just such a nice casual conversation among whiskey enthusiasts and listening to them, about their passions and all the information you get from it. It really is a nice podcast, so I do enjoy listening to that.
Well, that's actually Gregor's podcast.
All right.
It's his thing. But yeah, it's the Dramface podcast. He's the host for it. I think we've all been a wee bit surprised by how much people have engaged with that and quite
Yeah.
enjoyed it because we are just sitting around talking about the things that we would be sitting around talking around anyway. Um, but we're also quite surprised by how much we're enjoying it too. So
Yeah.
not just the reception, but how much it's tough to get people together. I don't know if you're aware, but Gregor, despite his
Oh yeah.
accent, is actually on the west coast of the US.
Hmm.
So the time zones are an immediate challenge there. But he's been really super accommodating, getting up
Yeah.
early in the morning on weekends and crazy stuff. And we managed to get the 12 episodes plus the pilot out and completed, so that we've kind of got podcast content up. Well, they're all out now; they're all public, but that should give people stuff to listen to over summer.
Hmm.
I'm not sure exactly what the plans are for bringing that back towards the end of the year, but we're certainly excited to try and get it started again later in the year. I'm really glad to hear that you're enjoying it. We've had a lot of fun with it too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's kind of like a conversation any whiskey enthusiast would have with their friends and their fellow drinkers, and you just feel like you're just part of the group, and you kind of want to contribute. Sometimes you're like, oh wait, I've got opinions and thoughts on that too. So it's just really cool to hear people say the same things that you want to say anyway. So that's really well done, and Gregor, great job by him hosting it. He's a great host, and actually I shortly after I go to Scotland, I'll be flying out to Portland, so I'm going to try to meet up with him there. So hopefully I can get that together too.
Yeah, he's a good guy, Gregor, and he does a very good job hosting. He's very to me seems really quite natural at it, and he keeps the rhythm and he keeps the pace. He keeps us all on track and stops us
Yeah.
digressing too much and things. It's been good fun. It's been good fun. And if you do want to, just as you were mentioning there, talking about getting involved, we've got this kind of cool little feature now called the Dramaphone.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you you have to go to the website to use it. You can go into the website. Actually, it's still only available to members.
Mm-hmm.
There was talk about us releasing it to public. But if you're a Dramface member, if you support, you can be a member of Dramface and support the content. It's all free, of course, but you can support it for $3.99 a month. And one of the wee rewards that you'll get is access to the Dramaphone, and you can record messages that we can edit into the podcast, so you can record feedback or opinions, or it's most often been used recently for people are using it now for people just asking random questions about whiskey and whiskey situations and stuff. So it's good fun.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I'll have to jump on that Dramaphone shortly after we get off of this. Since we're a little bit earlier here, I've got a little extra time post this. Absolutely. So what do you have in the glass right now? What are we sipping on?
I know that you and I haven't fully teed up. We've just kind of thrown a couple of suggestions around. So I've got 4 bottles in front of me, and I've poured the first one, which I'm not sure you have, which is a Craigellachie.
All right.
It's sitting on the shelf there. I haven't had it in a wee while. I should have hold it up.
Yeah.
It's just the standard Craigellachie 13 space cider, a naturally presented space cider. Good job by Dewar's, Bacardi Dewar's on this one, 46%. Unchill filtered. I believe it to be natural colour, although I'm not sure this one states on the label. It does tell us that it's non-chill filtered, but we believe it to be natural coloured. And a very decent wee pour for certainly in the sub £50 mark. I think I paid about 42 for this one.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, the Craigellachie 13, I did have a bottle of that once. The first pour I had of it was in a bar in New York City, and I really enjoyed it, and it encouraged me to go out to seek it out. At the time, I paid $43-ish, which is incredible value for the 46%, 13 years. Though the subsequent pours from the entire bottle never quite lived up to that one I had in the bar. So I enjoyed it, but and it's a very nice, easy sipper, especially at the beginning of a flight like you're having right now. But not one that I felt inclined to buy a backup of.
Well, I will say that I think that, batch variation is always going to be a thing with single malt, definitely a thing with Craigellachie 13. But what I will say about Craigellachie 13 is that, and you mentioned putting it at the start of the flight there, because probably on flavour alone it is considered to be quite light. But it's not a delicate spirit, and certainly tonight this is reminding me how weighty it actually is. This is quite oily and viscous tonight.
Yeah.
But I have had much lighter bottles of Craigellachie 13 too, so I appreciate exactly what you're saying. But this one, to me, it's a nudge darker from memory to the glass.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure whether there's a slightly different makeup here, but certainly a wee bit of batch issue. But this is often celebrated as being quite a weighty, robust, oily, viscous whiskey. And sometimes it is, and sometimes less so. I think Craigellachie is at its absolute best at an older age. But unfortunately, the older ages are very expensive. So this sits just into the teenage years. And this is a very good bottle that I've got in front of me this time. This is one that I'm enjoying having time with. And it does bring that oily viscosity. I've only got a wee sip of it left, so we can get on to drinking a similar thing.
Slightly different direction, and I'll just snag a little bit of Hazelburn 10.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
As
Get your Campbelltown on.
Yeah. The Hazelburn 10 was one of and this is my second bottle of it. It's one of those whiskeys that benefits, in my opinion at least, benefits greatly from sitting on the shelf for a little while after you open it. The first couple of pours in both bottles I had were kind of muted and a little bit suffocated. But once it opened up, it just was such a nice, delicate, delicious Campbelltown whiskey.
So before we get on to talking about your trip and what your plans are and things and how I might be able to help there.
Yes.
Do you believe in the neck pour then? It's a thing?
I do, and I feel like I've read studies that there's no such thing like the blind tasting and whatnot, and maybe it's a neck pour, maybe it's evolution of your palate, but I do think that whiskey, more often than not, gets better as you drink it down, than the initial couple of pours. I really do think that's a thing, and I'm guessing you share a similar belief.
Yeah, I fully believe that you can have a resplendent, wonderful moment with a neck pour, something that just comes out the bottle. It can be fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And not all whiskies are the same. You know, to broad brush the entire category, even of malt whiskey, would be a disservice. I think every whiskey needs to be considered a little bit differently. But for me, in my experience, it almost doesn't matter whether it can be discussed and explained away from a scientific perspective. If we feel it, if we taste it, if it's part of the experience for us, then it's a thing. It's just something that we have to weave into our whiskey experience and not judge the whiskey always on the neck pour. Give it time. And what tends to happen for me is that, especially when I'm reviewing for Dramface or something like that, or even for the channel, is I'll if I need to take any photos or whatever, I'll take photos when there's a good fill in the bottle if I can, right? Because a fuller bottle takes a prettier picture. But I'll always kind of try and make sure it's well beyond the shoulder before you actually decide. And you can't do that in one night. It has to be over a course of a few nights with a different palate condition, with in contrast with different whiskies, different mood, moment, environment, whatever it may be. But neck pour is certainly something that you've got to, in my experience anyway, so it's something that you've just got to consider. That you don't need to run your whiskey life by it. But it is a consideration. It's definitely a thing for me. Yep.
Well, yeah, and I think it's not only is it a consideration, it's something that I would highly encourage other people to be patient, take your time with it, because I'm sure it's happened to you that there are some whiskeys when you first pour it that you're like, I'm not sure if I really like this, and by the end of the bottle it ends up being one of your favorite whiskeys. It's like, wow, this thing really transformed. And you don't want to, and imagine if you were neglected that opportunity to learn that whiskey. So definitely never dump a bottle, never just give away a bottle, give it some time, see how it evolves over time. And I think Hazelburn 10 is like the one example that always pops in my mind that just improved so much after a couple of months just resting a little bit on the shelf. And that happens a lot with bourbons too. I've noticed bourbons tend to get quite a bit better after the neck pour and some oxidation.
Yeah, absolutely. Good.
All right, so like I mentioned, the theme of this this live stream is basically what are just some planning a trip to Scotland. What are some pitfalls? What are some things to do, not to do? And it just coming from your perspective as a local, what would you say when I'm thinking like I should go to Scotland? What's the first thing that should come to a tourist's mind?
Well, it's a wee bit like what we've been talking about. It's one size does not fit all. It's going to be different for everybody. So we're obviously coming at this from the context of somebody coming into Scotland. They're going to do general travel and touring, I guess, but it's a whiskey flavoured trip. I think that's what your angle is here. So maybe you're going to be visiting whiskey attractions, distilleries, visitor centres, areas, regions, towns, that kind of thing. Let me open up by just asking you, how long are you going to be here for, Tim, as an example? And what's your rough kind of plans? Where are you going regionally? Do you have it mapped out yet?
I do, yeah. So we'll be there for 10 days. We're spending the first night in Glasgow. Then we're heading over to Campbelltown for 3 nights. So the plan is to go to Springbank and the Cadenhead warehouse tour. Then from there, we're going to travel up to Fort Williams for a couple of nights. There, the highlight is the hiking. We want to go hike around Glencoe. Although I did hear the story about whoever it was broke their leg up there, so it got me a little. Ben broke his leg up there, so it's got me a little wary of hiking Glencoe. But we'll take the proper precautions. And then from there, we're going to go up to right around Keith in Speyside for 3 nights, where we're going to go to Glenallachie and maybe Knockdhu Distillery if we hear back from them. And then we're going to end the trip in Aberdeen before we fly back home in Edinburgh.
Okay.
So it's a loop around the
right,
mainland.
And you're staying on the mainland. You're not leaving the mainland. You're not hitting Islay. You're not hitting any of the islands. So I mean, that sounds fairly reasonable. What often can happen, and I think especially because in America, you guys are used to traveling huge distances, right? State to state is nothing for you. And whereas Scotland can fit in so many of your states, so I suppose it seems like quite a small country, and it certainly is. But the infrastructure here is very different. We have big roads and motorways and everything, of course we do. But when you go off away from the kind of populous areas to visit distilleries and things, the roads become really quite small and winding.
Yeah.
So you need to weave in a lot of time, extra time for travel. Google Maps can be a good friend for that kind of thing, of course. So the temptation is often to try to fit too much in, because the consideration that Scotland is a small place. You know, we could do Glasgow in the morning, Edinburgh in the afternoon. Yeah, you can, but you're going to feel rushed. You know, get to Islay, we can hit 3 distilleries a day, 4 maybe. You know, yeah, you can, but you're going to feel rushed, and you're not going to have time to kind of slow down and immerse yourself in things with the. Almost treat it like it's not going to be your only time, I think, would be the way to, you know, it will be if you almost like a bag distilleries or bag venues or whatever it may be. You're not. I don't think you're going to have a lot of fun, maybe, and maybe it's going to be your only time. But if you do spend a little bit of time in each of these places and slow down. Take the tours by all means, upgrade the tours, definitely, if you can, if you can afford them. But also spend a bit of time getting there early, talk to people, stay a wee bit longer, stay later if they have places to eat and drink, stay there, hang out a bit, walk around, take photos, you know, get to know the environment a wee bit, slow down, and don't just kind of go for the, you know, the let serendipity take a hold as well. Don't just be chasing all those Instagram snaps, right? All those,
exactly.
You know, just feel it as much as it, see it, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
That would be my thing, is that, and you've got 10 days to go around your loop. That sounds fine to me. You're going to cover a lot of distance. You're going to find that traveling between the spots is as much fun as being in the spots.
Oh yeah.
There's going to be things along the way, things that you can stop, do, eat, drink, take photos, poke around, do wee detours and things like that as well. You might be surprised how much you come away enjoying the whiskey, certainly in the whiskey spots, but they're just kind of, you know, they just punctuate the whole experience. Just driving around is going to be part of it, because all of the whiskey starts to make so much more sense. The fertile lands of Speyside, you can understand why whiskey distilleries became so many there, because the infrastructure was there, the agriculture was there, the fresh water, all the rivers of the Speyside, and of course the railway. So all of that just makes sense. And then you're in the Western Highlands and much more remote areas, and you realise why they would be smoky and peaty, because the infrastructure, it's there now. They have electricity and you know, they have alternative energy now. But back in the 19th century, 100 years ago even, and even up to the mid 20th century, a lot of these distilleries were not yet electrified, and a lot of them relied on peat much more heavily than they do today as a flavour component. The reason that peaty whiskies taste of peat is incidental, because it was a fuel source. So when you actually see that and you feel that, you drive past the peat bogs, you see how much of the land is challenging and rugged and remote and things, then you realise that, okay, these flavours have a place, they come from something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would, one of my number one things would be pacing. Don't try to fit too much in, leave breaks and time to kind of just do ad hoc things. It sounds like you may have done that. I don't know. I hope you've built in some time.
Oh yeah, definitely did. Any travel day that we have. Hold on. All right, sorry, my computer keeps on asking if it trusts my iPhone. Anyways, any travel days we have. No, it was mine. Any travel days we have are scheduled. That's the only thing we're doing. We're driving from point A to point B. We're going to take our time. We're going to see where the road takes us and stop where we feel like we need to stop. And yeah, I definitely agree. Any vacation, it's not worth packing in too much stuff. And planning about one activity a day really should be about it. And then just enjoy it, embrace it, and just take your time and you know, become fully immersed in the experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are you pouring next there?
Oh, sorry, there's no way that we'll have the same bottle here. You've probably got maybe a 750. I don't know. Yeah, you have single malts of Scotland, so you have the. I think I did have that, and I may still have some of it over there actually. But the one I've got is their small batch, or I think they call it reserve casks or something. So this isn't single cask. This is a parcel, and this is a parcel made up of distillate from 2007 to 2009. So it's a 11-year age statement, but it looks like some of it is possibly going to be as old as 13. But yeah, it's Teaninich. It is from single malts of Scotland, but it's just a different one of their a different range. At 48% ABV, this is reduced in strength, where I think the one that you'll have there is in the 50s, right?
60.4%.
Wow, yeah.
So
is that a 750 ml bottle or 700?
750. Or no, I take that back. It's 70 CL.
Wow. Okay, so you either bought it from the UK or bought it or took advantage of the fact that you're able to buy 700s.
We are able to buy 700s, but I'm pretty sure I bought this before that was allowed, so I'm sure I got that from the UK. And I do have to say you have good consistency, because we did a live stream in March, and you also picked Teaninich
that night, so we're doing another Teaninich here.
I should have paid attention.
No. You do so many live streams. I'm sure you don't remember what you do during any given live stream.
No, it's very. There are times that I've caught, if you go into respond to comments or something like that, and the video runs.
Yeah.
And I hear my own voice, and I start to listen to myself because I have absolutely no recollection of me saying these things. It's new to my ears.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, when you talk a lot, especially for you now, with your both Aqvavitae, Dramface, the podcast, you end up not remembering a good portion of the things you say, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, you have to be absolutely. You can't tell lies. You can't. You have to be careful about repeating yourself too much in things, because the community. No, they remember what you're saying, right?
Absolutely.
But you're absolutely spot on. You're right. But I mean, it's not a bad thing to drink again, is it? A nice Teaninich, right?
No, not at all. It's one that I overlook too frequently. So I'm glad when you encourage it, because it helps me drink things I don't reach for normally, and that only helps build out your palate. And both Gregor and Colin are agreeing that when you go to Scotland, book a few hard points and enjoy the in-betweens. So that's a good way to say it.
Yep, absolutely. So did you? I mean, I'm missing who's in, because I've got varifocals here. So I need to read the screen. I need to be like this, and to see you, I need to be like that. So
yeah. The iPhone is just not a great format, especially when you're used to the large screens. We got Colin, Whisky Novice, Time for Dram, among the group
that's in right now.
Oh, so if I can see Whisky Novice, Jim, Gregor is here. Yeah, fantastic. We were just saying nice things about you, Gregor, a wee minute ago. Good to see you in, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's nice to see familiar faces. It's been a few weeks.
Yeah, how? Just as an aside, your vacation go well? Everything
was
super,
restful and
super. Yeah, it was wonderful to get out. I mean, it's been sunny here today. We do get sunshine here, despite people, but it's not like the sunshine in the Mediterranean or Southern Europe or. And we went out there, and it was just amazing to feel the sun and get, the vitamin D recharged and things. It was incredible, and it was after 2 years of missing it. 2019 was the last time we'd been away.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was fantastic. Thanks for asking. It was a terrific time. The whole family enjoyed it. We really did appreciate it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You need that time away, and that first one back after the pandemic also always has a little more meaning. My wife and I went to Italy in May, I think it was, and it was our first time abroad since the pandemic, and it was just so nice to just kind of have some semblance of normalcy for
the first time in a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to be able to travel, see the world again and things. Of course, there are still things going on. We still need to be a wee bit careful and mindful, but yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. It's kind of, I always have a break in summer, and it always, sitting talking to you tonight as well, kind of reminds me of that, seeing the familiar faces and names popping up. I'm just keen to get back in and enjoying the whole whiskey scene again and things, because I do feel a wee bit distanced from it. Like, I'm not entirely sure what's been happening while I've been away. I've not really been watching much social media or things. And sitting here sipping this is a really nice dram. It's Teaninich for me has always got a lovely lemon fizz, a lovely brightness to it, a kind of almost mild effervescence. And that's here in this glass tonight. And it's just kind of, when you're away, when you're traveling, you can't take your whiskey with you.
No.
So it doesn't matter what mood you're in, you're going to have to put up with whatever you've got available wherever you are. So that's one of the nice things about being home, just to be able to reach for these wee treats and enjoy them.
Yeah, I think I saw an Instagram post by you, and you had, I think it was the Deanston 10 Bordeaux cask finish. Was that on vacation, or was that before you left?
So in 2019, I bought that from duty free from travel retail, and I took it out there, and I left it. There's an apartment. We go to the same place all the time, family place. We've had it for years. It's over time. There's this little dark corner cabinet that I've been gradually filling up with my whiskey bottles. But most of them, surprise, surprise, are from duty-free travel retail purchases. But this time I went through travel retail and I didn't buy anything. There was just nothing that took my fancy at all there. Dull. And I decided just to buy whiskies out there. But when I got out there, of course, you remember that you've forgotten that there's bottles there. So there was an old Lefroy PX cask. There was that Deanston, as you mentioned. That's the one I was drinking that night for. I think I took that picture and shared it. Just, a nod to World Scotch Day, was it?
I think so.
International Scotch Day or something. I don't know. There's a lot of social posts flying around and notifications popping up. I said, "Oh, I should mark that." And that's a wee collection of things that I have out there. But I bought Spanish whiskey this time, just to see, I mean, it was so ridiculously inexpensive. An 8-year-old I bought for €10,
wow.
which is about £9, £9.50 or something. I bought a blend that was even cheaper than that. I don't remember the name of the blend. And I bought a 15-year-old single malt. 15-year-old. It was only 40%. It's frustrating because I think the Spanish should have the confidence to bring out some really quite nice natural stuff, and I'm looking forward to opening that as well. And again, the 15-year-old was €30. So ridiculously good value. Of course, is it good drinking whiskey? I have to say, in that heat out there, drinking it at 40% anyway, relaxed about it. You can use it in a highball, you can pour it over ice, it doesn't matter. That's probably what it's designed for, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
But you can also enjoy it as a sipping whiskey. And I was happy the entire holiday on those pours.
All
absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't think global travel retail is going to really need to up its game to get my attention in the future. It just doesn't make sense anymore.
No, and I wonder if some of the lack of interesting bottles is because of the suppressed travel over the last couple of years. Maybe they just haven't been as innovative with getting unique releases. But also, there's so much good stuff that you can buy in regular retail. There's not a ton of incentive to pay a premium for some of these travel retail offerings, at least from my experience looking in liquor stores at the airports.
Yeah, I think there's you're going to notice it yourself. It's interesting. It weaves into the topic that we probably need to get back on. Is, that when you travel, you're going to be coming through airports, Tim, and when you go back home again, you'll be going through airports. But it's kind of a black box. You don't really see what's there until you travel. But I can tell you now that even what used to be very good shopping in Edinburgh Airport, Glasgow Airport, it's getting more and more dull.
Yeah.
And that maybe speaks a lot to me where I am in my journey. I'm kind of looking for natural stuff. I'm looking for good quality. I'm looking for the prices to be safe and sane. I'm not looking for cheap.
Yeah.
I'm just looking for fair, reasonable value. But none of those boxes are ticked. Everything is watered down with very few exceptions. Everything is not recognizable to things that you would buy in normal retail at all. Yeah. So you've got all these bizarre names and slightly altered packaging and things. So I think what's happening is that there's products being specifically designed for global travel retail under the notion of it being exclusive, but that doesn't make any sense, because why would you put an exclusive in a place where you literally have to book a flight to even get access to it in the first place?
Yeah.
So it's odd to put an exclusive in there as a draw or something. It doesn't make any sense. So I think what it's more likely to be, it's driven by profit and demand by whoever owns these franchises for duty free and things, and that's a shame. And I think Scotch whisky needs to be careful. All global whisky needs to be careful about being abused or having to water down things. But yeah, I wouldn't if you're going through airport travel retail and you find good prices, you find good products, by all means pick it up. But don't hang your jacket on that. You know, if you say, "Oh, I'm not going to take any whiskey because I can pick it up at the airport," yes, you can, but you might not get the choice that you hope.
Yeah, so instead of saying, "Oh, I'm not going to buy any whiskey from Springbank because I'm going to pick some stuff up at the airport," I'll avoid that
right there.
Absolutely. You know better than that.
Of course, but I did read,
and this was months ago, that Glengoyne was going to release a 10-year-old at 46% ABV to travel retail, and that one did intrigue me a little bit because, you know, their standard 10 is a solid whiskey, and to see what it would be like at a more natural product did intrigue me. But I don't know if it's out yet. I don't know if it was out and sold out. I'm not sure what the story is
behind that.
That's genuinely something I would be interested in. Again, if it was at a fair price, if the price was good value. 10-year-old Glengoyne at 46%, what we've been aching for. I think that would do very, very well. So yeah, that would be a good one to pick up and look out for. You would keep your fingers crossed that was good. That sounds interesting.
And go ahead.
What I was going to say was this is related to buying whiskey when you're away from home. When I think I remember you saying that you may be going to the U.S. Sometime later this year. And when you go to, and I can't speak for Texas specifically, but at least up where I am, when you go into a liquor store and look at the Scotch selection, it'll be like going back in time for you, because Scotch whiskey is not a huge market in the United States. So you'll find bottlings that sold out 5-6 years ago in the UK just collecting dust on the shelves. And for a Scotch whiskey enthusiast in the US, that's great because I have access to long lost whiskeys. But you know, when you go out there, you'll be amazed at some of the things that are still on the shelf.
No, again, it's been 2019, the last time since I was out there. There's always some liquor store aisle cruising goes on, and we go out to see. And you're absolutely right. And I remember even the last time in 2019 when I was out there, they had multiple editions of Springbank local barley available. They were behind glass cabinets. These were known to be, you know, quite special things, but they were around retail. You know, they weren't secondary market pricing or anything. This was in stores like Specs and Total Wine. But they had lots of hidden treasures if you were willing to spend a bit of time and study the shelves a wee bit more. I remember picking up 19-year-old Clynelish for $49.
That's insane.
I remember picking up Capardonic. I think it was Capardonic. I'm pretty sure a 23-year-old Capardonic. I've still got some over there. I've got some stashed with a friend, with Josh, for $67 for a 23-year-old closed distillery. It was in an own brand, an independent type label, Lochins or something it was called. I don't really remember. But yeah, terrific bargains that you can pick up. If anybody's coming to Scotland to pick up bargains for their travel, you included, Tim, you probably already know the prices that are here. They're not the highest in the world, but they're not the cheapest either. If you want the cheapest, you have to go to Germany and the Netherlands and things, continental Europe. But, you know, that it's one of the things about travel, just be mindful. Don't fill up your luggage with things that you can get at home.
Absolutely.
Even if the price is great, because it's not worth it to take up that slot in your suitcase. Try and pick up the things that you can only get at your destination. Like those two that I was talking about out in Texas. You've just made me excited for Texas again. I was already, but I'd kind of forgotten about it in this busy week. But yeah, that's a month from now, 10th of September.
Oh, that's so
the Bastard's Ball.
All right, that's in September, not October.
Yeah, September 10th.
Okay. All
September
right.
10th this year. It's shuffled around. It's been in August in 2018. It was October 2019. We had a virtual event in 2020, of course. Last year, I don't remember. I didn't attend last year because your borders were still closed. Um, so I'm looking forward to getting back there too.
Yeah.
Let me ask you on that point. I was just thinking about my accommodation and things for Texas because I still need to sort that out. But have you got your accommodation locked in where you're traveling?
Yes, I do.
That's after what we talked about, the pacing,
Yeah.
accommodation, and it's always been my kind of get your accommodation sorted first. That's become more and more crucial, I think. Not everywhere all the time, but accommodation. There's been an extreme strain on accommodation recently. Now, with international travel opening up again, the theory is that maybe with less staycationers using up this accommodation, it'll be a bit better this year. But I think what's actually happening is that the foreign travel has kicked in again. So any staycationers that don't use it, we're maybe going to get international travel coming back in to use it again.
Yeah.
There are the days of just picking up a B&B ad hoc, picking up a hotel room ad hoc, you sorting out your accommodation when you arrive in town. Those days are long gone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's not something I would ever do. I book months in advance just to make sure I know exactly where I'm going. And just a couple of comments by Gregor. He mentioned that you want distillery only when you bring back bottles, things that you can only get at the distilleries, obviously. And then he also mentioned that the Glengoyne 10 and 15 are both in travel retail now. So those are ones to keep an eye out for at 46%, if they're at a good price.
Yeah, terrific. I didn't see them in Glasgow. I maybe just walked past Glengoyne under the consideration that I was familiar with it. I might have been guilty of that. I'm not sure. But yeah, I didn't see it if it was there. Interesting.
Yeah.
I'll get another bite at that when I travel through for upcoming trips.
No,
absolutely. I did have a question beforehand submitted by the Art of War and Peace. I guess that's his username. He said, what are some common pitfalls whiskey novices fall into planning their first trip? And I think we touched on some of that, planning too much, but is there anything else that comes to mind?
I would say I think the biggest problem for anybody getting into whiskey today, and it's becoming more and more acute, is the cost, the price.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, it's always been part of it. Whiskey has never been a single malt whiskey, and the whiskey that we enjoy, Tim, it's never been inexpensive. It's never been cheap.
No.
But if you look back at the prices when we first started to enjoy it versus today, whenever that point in time was, it was a lot cheaper, and it's becoming more and more of an issue as time goes on.
Yeah.
That, unfortunately, is the same for the whiskey novice traveller, which I assume that question is around. If you go to a distillery, the tours are much, much more expensive than they were. I would always encourage people to kind of level up their tour, unless you don't have a lot of time and you need the basic tour just to get in and out and get a look around and a feel of the place, fine. But if you've got the time to spend there and kind of marinate a little in the environment and things, level up the tour, pay for the nice experience, pay for the takeaway bottle, pay for the, I don't know, whiskey and chocolate pairing, whatever it is that has a nicer range of products and a better understanding and a bit more time with the people there. That's a good thing to do. But for a whiskey novice, I can see how that would be a difficult justification. 60, 75, 90 pounds, more than 100 for some of these tours. That's a big ask, isn't it, all of a sudden? And I think it's a wee bit of a shame, because what these tours are very, very good at is taking people like the guy who asked the question there, and turning him into a fan, turning him into an ambassador and a lifelong supporter of the distillery based on a good experience. And I think if you overcharge and underdeliver, which unfortunately is inevitable as the prices rise, I think you run the risk of leaving a bitter taste in a lot of people's mouths, quite literally. And yeah, so to answer the question, I would say where you can find value, level up. and where you know where it's a very prominent brand, and you can see that the prices from the tours are expensive, level down.
Yeah,
Just do what you need to do to get a feel for the place.
absolutely.
Price is very much part of it. Unless you're very well off and you don't need to care about these things, carry on.
Yeah.
Good for you and things, but it's expensive. Traveling is expensive now.
Yeah.
I won't be buying a lot just because of my recent travels. I won't be buying a lot of whiskey over summer compared to previous years. That's for sure.
No, absolutely.
Are you ready for your next whiskey pour? Or are you still working on your Teaninich? Don't rush.
Take your time, enjoy it.
Can't it be both?
Yeah, it absolutely can. Where are you going next? What's your next direction?
Well, I was going to go for the Ancnoc if we're going to finish on the Springbank, right?
Yeah, that's the Anna.
So we have a match now. This is reasonably large outturns on the Ancnoc. 24-year-old from Knockdo Distillery. I hope you do manage to get a tour there. I have not been to Knockdo. It would be tremendous if you managed that.
I know, I'm not optimistic, but
I emailed a couple of different people there, and I think my emails just go to spam because it's a very long time before anybody responds. But if not, that's okay. But the reason why I wanted to go there is because I just love everything that I've had from Knockdo. Their whiskey is not only a great value, at least if you get it from the UK, but it delivers for me an above average experience for a whiskey.
Yeah, I would agree. I love it. I'm a big fan. I've been a fan of Ancnoc for years. The one that I fell in love with was famously the 16-year-old, which is discontinued unfortunately, but the exclusively ex-bourbon matured. This is a mix. This is ex-bourbon and sherry, but it's not a sherry bomb. This is quite a complex wee thing.
Yeah.
It's definitely similar to your Hazelburn, I think.
Yeah.
You don't get to know this whiskey until you spend a bit of time with it, I believe.
Yeah, this
one definitely gets better the more time you spend with it. And then you take into account the price you pay for a 24-year-old whiskey at 46% is insane. And then just this is a side tangent. Speaking of Hazelburn, to illustrate how coming back to the United States will be like a time capsule for you, I just bought this from a liquor store in Maryland like a month or two ago. The very old school Hazelburn 12, just sitting there collecting dust in Maryland, and then this was discontinued a long time ago.
How much did you pay?
I paid $100 for the bottle, so it's on the pricey side. But all Springbank products in the United States have a premium, even at retail. The standard 10-year-old Springbank is $80 minimum, if not $100 for most places. So you're already paying a bit of a premium for Springbank products in the U.S., unfortunately. But we can still actually get some Springbank occasionally in the store, where in the UK it's nearly impossible. So you give some,
you take some.
That's right. It's just the way it goes. You be grateful for the little bonuses you have from time to time.
Absolutely.
But this one for me is just lovely dried and cooked fruits and jam, lovely spice, but soft spice, ginger, nutmeg, cinnamon type cooking spices. There's a lovely kind of fresh sawn wood note in here. I'm not speaking about a tannic, bitter, oaky, resinous type thing. I'm speaking about fresh cut sawn wood, that kind of warm wood almost. This is a terrific, and some it's like jam. You call it jelly in the States, right? I mean, jam with pepper. Cheers.
Cheers.
It's terrific. Prices on this have gone up in the UK. It used to be really quite spectacular, unreasonable value. You could argue, as everything else crept up, it was inevitable that this was going to we could pick this up for £110, £115. Now it's gone up to 140, 145. And if you look at it on its shelf next to its peers, be honest, that's not unreasonable.
No.
However, where at the previous price, it was just a no-brainer. In fact, when the bottle was becoming low, you were putting in a backup.
Yeah.
Probably with a mind that it would increase in price. Now it's a kind of thing. Well, okay, it's not a bargain anymore. it's not at risk. It's just going to sit there alongside its competition. If I'm in the mood for it, maybe I'll pick it up. But there's so much out there at £145 price point that, you know, you don't feel the pressure to always have it as a staple anymore. I would suggest. That's just me speaking, I think. But,
Yeah,
unless you're from the United States, where this runs for about $250. Yeah, that's the lowest I think I've ever seen it in the U.S. I bought my bottle from the U.K. because of the much better value, but the U.S. Definitely upcharges all Aqvavitae products, or all Aqvavitae products are quite a bit more expensive, but luckily it's fairly easy to put in an order from the UK and get things at a much better value.
Yeah, and I would say that I don't know. I think that I'm not in the industry and I don't really know, but I get the feeling that when that happens, it's usually distribution, it's usually the agent, it's the retailer, because they look at it and say, wait a minute, this is a 24-year-old single malt product. That's too cheap. Let's bump the prices up. And they're able to do a little bit of kind of, so that extra margin, that extra money that's being made does not go back to the producer, which is unfortunate. It really is unfortunate. And you can see that why then the producers look at it and say, well, you know, what we're doing here, we should, if they're able to sell it at that price, then, you know, we're going to, so there might be a little bit of that going on as well. Like I say, I don't know, I'm just guessing. Enthusiast.
Yeah.
As an enthusiast, we have to look at these things and, you know, make guesses at what might be happening, because it doesn't make sense that it could be $250.
No, but and it just, they just sit on the shelves too. That's the thing. Like, they price it at this for a market that's more bourbon driven than Scotch whiskey driven, and then they just sit on the shelves and collect dust. There's a local liquor store to me that just started having a huge sale on the Lechic 18-year-old batch 2, which I think was bottled originally in 2015, and they had about 20 bottles on their shelf that they cut the price down to about $100. And then the Deanston 15 organic, they cut down to about $50, and they still have about 20 bottles on the shelf just because they're overpriced initially. They just sit there at a huge premium, and nobody's that interested in it.
And of course, that's a great value. That's a bargain. But nobody knows what Deanston is.
Exactly.
If it arrived at a fair price in the first instance, and people would have spent a bit of time telling people how good it was, how good a product it was, what that 50-year-old organic, what it meant in order to produce that, all of those kind of things, you know, maybe they wouldn't be sitting with them on the shelf if they'd originally sold them at a fair price. Whereas now it's heavily discounted. It looks like something that nobody's interested in, or something poor quality, or something cheap. And it's not a good look. That's a difficult thing to pull off, this heavily discounting.
Yeah.
That's a shame for what are obviously very good whiskies, right?
Yeah, no, it's a huge shame. But
once I see that, you know, I do a good job of spreading the word, and I actually had a picture on my Instagram the other day of a cart full of with 9 Lechic 18-year-olds, most of them of which were for my friend, who I told him, like, get these as gifts for, he was looking for a bunch of whiskeys for graduation gifts. I'm like, these Lechic 18s are going to be better than almost anything else you can buy at that price point. Get these, they're going to love it. And so he bought 7 of them, I think. So, you know, at least I'm helping get the good word out there. And, you know, as part of the whiskey influencing community, I guess part of my job is to try to educate people in what good alternatives are to the brand names that everybody's familiar with.
Yeah, well, I mean, an opportunity like that, I think the Lechic 18 is £90 here in the UK. What did you say you picked that one up for?
They were on sale for $100. So what's that, about 80-ish pounds? Yeah.
So, and it's probably, compared to the price that you would be paying, it's quite a heavy discount to normal, right?
Yeah, usually that's around $150, $160 for the Lechic.
Yeah.
So it's a significant discount. They were desperate to get rid of them.
So you're not only guiding and helping out, you're actively helping people save a bit of money too. Good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Dram Dude saying that somebody wouldn't give me one. He politely requested one for free in the DMs. So, you know, I'm a giving person, but you know, I'm not sure if I'm there yet. Anyways, I did actually get some to kind of reorient us back on the idea of trips to Scotland. I got some notes by Jason, who the recently ex-Dramface writer. and hopefully future Dram Face writer as well. And he gave me some. He gave some tips too. Like we said earlier, he said plan for one thing a day, which makes sense. Pace yourself, go slow. And his next piece of advice was do not visit Islay. He described it as the Disneyland of the whiskey world. So I guess that's a tip for novice. Although he did, when I said which distilleries should you go try, he did mention Bunnahabhain, so there's a little conflicting information there, whether we avoid Islay or we go to Bunnahabhain. Those don't go hand in hand. And then another important consideration was that a lot of distilleries are not open on the weekend, so if you don't plan properly, you could show up to somewhere on a Saturday or Sunday thinking, why wouldn't it be open on the weekend, and find out it's closed. And actually, as I was planning out my Speyside portion, I did realize we happened to be there, I think, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm like, man, a lot of distilleries are closed on the weekend, so that is unfortunate. Luckily, Glenallachie was open, so we'll be able to check that.
Yeah. I mean, it is proven to be a nightmare, and that's, you take that statement. We'll get back to Jason's comments in a minute.
Yes.
Take that statement and apply it to everything that you need. Apply it to your anything that involves hospitality, anything that involves staff. Right now, the world is feeling it. Right, we're struggling to recover in staff. A lot of positions post-COVID. But there's another, we've also got the Brexit dynamic here in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
So where we had a reasonably large pool of seasonal staff, especially for hospitality and tourism, we don't have that right now, and we're struggling. So what that actually means is that it's not just distilleries and visitor centres that are closing more than they normally would. It's restaurants, it's shops, it's anything that you would casually just expect to walk into. Those days are often gone. Restaurants are closed on certain days of the week, and even when they're open, their kitchen is maybe taking last meal orders at 8:30, 9 p.m, whatever it may be, much earlier than it normally would. So you, as well as booking your accommodation and booking your distillery tours that you're going to do, I know that I'm kind of saying there is a bit of conflict there. I'm saying let serendipity creep in, because let's face it, you can cook at home if you're in self-catering, you can just get some takeout food, do whatever, but at least a few nights. I think it was Gregor that had the good point about kind of hard points in the trip. We are booked in a restaurant for that night, and it's the reservation's made. We're going to be there, and we're guaranteed to have a table. It's a good restaurant or a nice restaurant. Do that, because when we were on Islay earlier in June, we struggled. We were having to shuffle things around, and I was having to book 2 weeks before we even left to make sure that the restaurants that we did want to eat at, that we could get into, especially if you're a larger group, maybe one or two traveling, it's not quite as acute, but when we were a larger group, it was tough.
Yeah.
That's just something to be mindful of right now.
Yeah.
Our infrastructure is really, I don't remember it being this frail, but it is frail right now. You're still going to have a good time. You're going to get around. You're going to be able to travel. You're going to be able to do these things. But everything's affected, even ferry crossings and everything. If you've got an itinerary, if it's well planned, Tim, and I'm sure it is, you're going to be okay for your hard points where you know you're going to be. But that's certainly something that's affecting people
absolutely.
Generally right now.
Well, speaking of restaurants, and I do have a couple of questions. I booked a few already, and I want to get your opinion on them. In Glasgow, I booked at Obsession of India. Is that a good restaurant?
Have you been there, I guess? And then
I have never been there, but generally speaking, Glasgow is a very good city to eat Indian food.
Yeah. And which is why
I was seeking it out, because rumor has it that chicken tikka masala, one of my favorite Indian dishes, was invented in Glasgow. So I figured if we're there for a night, I should look for a high quality Indian restaurant. And just reading the reviews, it seemed like it was a good restaurant in Glasgow.
Yeah, you're only in Glasgow for one night, right?
Only one night, unfortunately.
How many of you are traveling? Remind me, 3 of you?
5 in total.
5 of you.
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, it sounds like you've done your research. You've found a good one. That's not one that I know. It's, what was it? Obsession of India, was it?
Obsession of India, I think it was called.
Okay, I'll check that out for you.
Yes, and
And
if
if
you
it
hear
looks
bad
good, I'll leave you
things,
there. But if you're struggling, yeah, there's plenty backups. There's
all
plenty
right.
Indian fare and restaurants in Glasgow. It's definitely one of the things to try and eat while you're here. That's a
Yes.
good one. That's a good call.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then in Campbelltown, have you been to Restaurant 42? I think it's called.
Nope. Nope.
Does it ring a bell?
Uh, it doesn't ring a bell.
Okay.
No. Restaurant 42.
I think that's the name
Um,
of it. I asked, I reached out to Dave Allen, one of Springbank's marketing director,
yes,
and that was
absolutely.
the restaurant he recommended. So I called them up or emailed them for reservation. So I'm hoping it's a seafood place in Campbelltown that
Perfect.
supposedly is
Listen,
good.
if it's David Allen, it's giving you a recommendation there. Nothing to worry about. You're doing well. We had our Shield. You know about the Ard Shield in Campbelltown. It's
Um,
just the walls are
yeah,
dripping with whiskey. It's well known for it. Um, but Campbelltown's not a big place. You can
yeah,
walk from anywhere to anywhere, generally speaking, throughout the day. So yeah, so that sounds like a good one. You're doing the right thing. You're getting kind of local, but like I say, a bit of serendipity. Um, TripAdvisor's an okay backup, right? It
hmm
maybe doesn't help you find the best, but it helps you avoid the worst, I think. So you do okay.
yeah,
But sometimes, just pick up some fish and chips
yes, yes, absolutely,
or a pie at the pot still or whatever it may be.
yes,
Yeah, just go with it, go with the flow.
yeah. No,
Yeah, that's exactly my thoughts on anywhere I travel. I do book a few restaurants in advance, but there's also a nice side of just being spontaneous, aside from just being shut out of everywhere because your group is too big or it's tourist season. But I feel like we're going during the shoulder season for the most part. I'm hoping it won't be too touristy or busy by the end of August, early September. So we do plan on just grabbing some fish and chips is requirement. I feel like going to the UK, and we'll be spontaneous for some of those nights and just see whatever has availability. We'll just try it out and not worry about the
reviews ahead of time.
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right. And you're not going to starve.
Hmm.
You're just going to not be able to eat at the places you might have wanted to eat. That's the kind of the thing.
Yeah.
And Jason's comment about Islay being Disneyland, he gets to say those things because he's been into whiskey for so long that he can kind of roll his eyes and say, "Oh, he's been there, seen it, done it all. He's done it lots of times." I've been Islay lots of times too. I think it's unfair to call it Disneyland. I think that, yeah, there's a lot of tourism in whiskey now, but that's inevitable. And I think it's, for the most part, a very positive thing. And Islay as an island is benefiting out of that. The
Hmm.
infrastructure there is much, much better today than it was the first time I visited Islay. Interestingly, the next time I'll see Jason is on Islay. This Sunday, he'll be
He
there.
just wants to keep everyone away from Isla, so he has the place to himself. That's probably
No,
what
I don't think that's true. I think he's just kind of, there's not much interest there for him anymore. He's got his sights on, he's at the kind of, not just the leading edge, the bleeding edge of the kind
yes.
of, he's knee deep in researching these Inverness distilleries like Glenvore and things like that. I think there's not much left there. And I say that's a shame because I had the privilege of being able to enjoy a dram at Ardnahoe on the last trip to Islay, and
Hmm.
that was fantastic and very encouraging.
Hmm.
I enjoyed that trip more than I expected to, honestly. So there are things still there, but somebody that's been there, seen it, done it all, like Jason, I can see why he would say things. But I think Disneyland is a wee bit unfair.
Yeah,
Um, Aye,
yeah, without a doubt.
but definitely, if you want to go to Islay, if Islay is a kind of ideal pilgrimage for you, do it. Go to Islay. It's magical. It really
Yeah,
is.
it's definitely on my list for a future.
trip to Scotland. This will actually be my second trip to Scotland. The first time I went was in 2017, but that was before I ever got into whiskey. So it was a complete just enjoying the landscape, hiking, and the cuisine. And it was like a bit of a Europe trip. So I had gone to Switzerland, which has majestic views of mountains and hiking and whatnot. Then we went to Paris, which has the fine dining and the cuisine scene. And then we go to Scotland, and in a way, it was kind of like in a completely different way, but similar in a sense. It had its own rugged beauty, but it also surprisingly had a wonderful food sense too. The community of the restaurants, because you have the traditional Scottish food, then you have the Indian influence with the chicken tikka masala and whatnot, but it also has a lot of French influence too. So I was surprised how good the food was the first time I went there. And it was kind of all the places I went to, had the best combination of all the things I was looking for in a vacation, which I was really surprised about.
For the weather, right? I think that's true. A lot of people, I'm often surprised to hear just how many people say, "Oh, I was surprised."
Yeah.
That the food was good in Scotland, and I think that's probably the Haggis thing.
Yeah.
The stories about deep frying this, that, and the next thing, and all of these crazy stories and things like that. And generally, you know, there are huge swathes of Scotland that do not have a particularly healthy diet, just like any other populated spot or reasonably populated spot on the planet.
Yeah.
But the food here can be very, very good and often very fresh. It's a fertile country, in it.
Yeah.
I would say that, and yeah, you're right about the kind of international influences that we have here from right across Europe, the rest of the world. Certainly India, yes, certainly Asia in general. I think it's yeah, you can eat most things, you can find most things here, and I would say that generally the standard is you're not going to starve.
Yeah, no.
But sometimes when people visit, I like to just take them for kind of some fun things, low end stuff too.
Oh yeah,
or, you know, low end, but good experiences.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. When we're here, ask me what a Serbeni is.
All right, no, yeah, definitely, absolutely. Yeah, and you know, it was just a pleasant surprise with everything. You know, we went out to the Isle of Skye the first trip, and that's where we spent most of our time, and it was a spectacular experience. And now I'm glad I get to go back for the more of a whiskey experience. Obviously, I'll do a lot of the hiking, a lot of the food scene too, but you know, it's just something I've been planning since 2020, which got canceled originally, but should really be you know, hopefully a wonderful trip. And you know, the weather is one thing, but if you dress for the weather, it's really not that big of a deal. Wear a rain jacket, wear some waterproof shoes, and you'll be fine getting yourself a good round.
Yeah, and just try and it's difficult to pack light when you're coming here because of the changeable weather. You don't know whether to pack shorts and a t-shirt or to pack literally a parka. It can be that silly. I mean, it never gets ridiculously extreme. We've got quite temperate conditions, but the problem is the changeability.
Yeah.
And the lack of predictability and stability, especially if you're on the West Coast. So, you know, pack an array of clothes, but do try to pack light, because the danger is that you end up packing for all eventualities. But just, you know, double up and get a day or two out of, you know, more than you normally would out your clothes.
Well, yeah,
and then another consideration is bringing back whiskey, so you have to have enough room in your suitcase to carry back. I think the allotment is 7-ish bottles per person, or 6 or 7. I forget the exact number. 500 or 5 liters maybe. So whatever that translates to. So that's another consideration. And luckily,
I think it's just a suggestion, right?
Yeah. They don't really enforce it too sternly.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I wouldn't encourage anybody to abuse it, but yeah, I know of certain travellers who've managed to go to at least 5.5 liters.
Yeah. No, I won't name names, but I chatted with a recent visitor to Scotland and how he got his whiskey back, and he employed children and wives, and you know, there's ways to kind of cheat the system a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
But we also we're staying in a couple of Airbnbs too, so which have washers and dryers, so that helps us be able to pack a little bit lighter. We can just wash our clothes along the way, and you know,
that'll help lighten up the bags. So
absolutely.
Is there a like out of all your distillery tours, you've been on a lot of them, is there one or a couple that stand out above the rest?
Yeah, but if I speak honestly, it's not because, it's this distillery.
Yeah.
This is the best tour. There are some good tours at certain distilleries. However, what you'll tend to find, and this is when I talk about just kind of being a wee bit ad hoc and letting a bit of serendipity come in, is that a tour at a distillery on a given day with given conditions and a certain host or tour guide, that's enough to make that the best tour of the trip.
Yeah.
And it's not what you were expecting for lots of reasons. So you can't really, I could say to you, do this tour at this distillery, and it's the opposite of all of that. It's not great conditions. It's not the tour guide that you want, and things were rushed or that didn't work out well, or the distillery's not in production, which is going to happen during this season for you. A lot of distilleries are in their down silent season, but maybe not end of August, September, you should be fine. But anything like that can come along and just mean that it's not what you hoped it was. So
yeah,
there are certain tours, such as obviously the warehouse tour at Lagavulin, but you're not going to Islay.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because it's Ian MacArthur. He was supposed to retire, and every year you go back, he's there again. And I asked him when we were there this last trip, what's going on, and when's the retirement now? And he's like, I tried it, and I just can't stay at home. I can't be at home.
Mm-hmm.
It's not work for him anymore. It's a habit, and it's a habit that he very much enjoys.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when he can do things like meet all these folk from all over the planet who are coming there just to hang out with him in his warehouse, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that things like that is worthwhile doing. Get Ian on a good day, and it's a wonderful experience. But even that, I would recommend to you, go to Lagavulin, do the warehouse experience.
Oh, yeah.
And Ian's not working there that day. He's on holiday, or he's doing something else, or whatever it may be. And then suddenly you can still have a fantastic time, but it's not the expectation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that, what you just need to do is go into all of the distilleries, all of the tours, try and pick the optimal tour, the one that you think is going to fit you, budget, theme, whatever it may be, and just go with it, enjoy it. And even if it's a bang average experience, you're still going to find yourself sitting back with a glass in your hand in a place you've never been before,
Mm-hmm.
getting to understand a wee bit more, the sights, the smells, the feel. Just enjoy it. And for every average or poor experience you have, you're going to have twice as many above average or even really good experiences. So, yes, I could recommend certain distilleries to you, but I'm not going to, because they're all capable of being, on their day, the best.
Okay. No,
that's not a cop-out. That's genuinely how I've come to experience these things.
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. The context of which distillery tours are happening makes all the difference, and then just enjoying the whiskey in Scotland, in the birthplace of all this wonderful spirit, is just gonna, that'll have its own significance, and it'll be some of the best whiskey ever. I mean, we haven't overbooked our own distilleries. I think we only have really 2 distilleries booked right now, and 1 warehouse tour from Gaidenheads, and maybe we'll add 1 or 2 more, but that's
the third tip.
Yeah.
Get them booked, because there's 5 of you.
Yeah.
That's going to be your challenge. So even if you've got availability on the tours that you want to pick, we can only accommodate 3 or 2, or book the distillery tours. Most of it's easy, and it's online these days. It's terrifically easy. But that's going to be your things. And again, go back to what Gregor was talking about with having hard points. You don't need to book up every day, because you want to put a bit of flexibility in there. But these hard points, get them booked in.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you find yourself with some time opening up in between, see what's there, see what's available, see what's local. It might not be a distillery, it might be a brewery, it might be some other attraction, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But definitely get your tours booked. I was very surprised in my recent trip to Islay how tough it was to get in on some of the tours.
Yeah.
You used to be able just to walk up to the distillery, walk into the visitor centre, when's your next tour, or who's available, that kind of thing. Those days are long gone now.
Yeah.
Book your tours.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll make sure to finish up our booking. If we decide to add any more to our list, it might end up just being 3 or 4 distilleries in total, which for me would be fine. There's only so much whiskey I can drink during a week anyway, so as long as I'm enjoying it and pacing myself, I think that's
the way to go.
If you leave Scotland after being here for 10 days and you've only been to 4 distilleries, I'll be shocked. But by all means, put that in as the plan.
All
All
right.
right, I'll let you know what additional distilleries we end up adding. You know, because for me, I can only drink so much whiskey in consecutive days before my palate gets a little saturated. So that's my fear, is that I'm gonna overbook, and then I'll go to a distillery that's really nice, but I won't be able to appreciate the experience just because I've had too much to drink previously. So
Listen, too much to drink is not a good look, but don't stress about oversaturating your palate.
All right.
You know, if you've saturated your palate on certain days, you're doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
You're not here to overanalyze. You're not here to taste every nuance. It's often just about soaking it up and just enjoying it and going with it. You don't need to really stress. When you're back at home and you're on your own and you're sitting with a nice little fluted glass or a capita, a tasting glass, whatever it is, you can analyze to your heart's content.
Yeah.
But while you're here, just float, just go with it.
Just enjoy the
Yeah,
experience.
my palate's saturated. Would you like another dram? Yes.
no, I think that's great advice, and something that everybody going to Scotland should keep in mind. Because how often are you in Scotland? You know, not unless you live there, not very often. So just enjoy the experience. Don't overthink it, and enjoy it as much as you can.
You know, we'll
Yeah, but even for me, Tim, it's the same for me because I live here, but it's still a trip for me to go and do what you're going to be doing. I still need to arrange something with the family and because I can't take the whole family on distillery tours and whiskey trips and things. So it's still a trip. It's still a way. So when I travel and do these things, I'm very much the same mindset as you're going to be in.
yeah.
Yeah, you've travelled further. It's more of a kind of bucket lister for you, I suppose, but generally it's the same. Getting drunk is a bad idea because you really don't remember the experience. You don't get the most out of it. You can't. But it's not going to be a difficult thing to pace it properly and relax and take, because it's small pours. It's just little amounts and just getting the cadence right and nice and just relaxing. But don't worry about palate saturation and things. Honestly,
No,
That's great advice. So I guess slightly aside from whiskey, if you're going out there for any hikes, is there a hike in Scotland that you recommend above all else?
a place to go.
Well, here's the one I'll recommend it now because I meant to suggest it to you when you were speaking earlier on, and we talked. The guy you were mentioning was Ben. He was on the final podcast, the Dramface podcast.
Yeah.
And then I shared a true anecdote about Ben, and he loves Glencoe. And the first time he was in Glencoe, he lost a wheel on the car. And he was stranded there for a long time. The second time, he got out of the car and went walking, but you can't walk easily in Glencoe. The terrain is not, it looks flat and it just looks like grass, tufts of grass, but it's not. It's not easy to walk on at all. If deer can't walk on it, you're not going to be able to walk on it, right? So don't try to do that. Don't try to go off-piste. But the West Highland Way goes directly through Glencoe, and that's a walking route from the north of Glasgow to Fort William. It's just shy of 100 miles. But there's a section of it that goes through Glencoe. It's a well-trodden, well-worn, often quite busy pathway.
Okay.
And it weaves through. So if you were thinking about a hike, maybe that section.
Okay.
Because you're going through there anyway. That section of the West Highland Way could be perfect for you.
Yeah.
You're going to get lots of elevation. You're going to be quite high up at certain points. I'm speaking like I've done the West Highland Way. I should say right now that I have not.
Okay.
But it's also going to weave down and take you right down into the valley as well, or the glen itself. So I would say, that sounds like a good one. But almost every hill in Scotland has a route, a dedicated route up there.
Yeah, without a doubt. And that's the reason why we're spending a couple of nights in Fort Williams,
is to hike in that general area. So we'll have to seek out that hike and definitely experience that. And then obviously Ben Nevis is there too. So if we can sneak in, that would be the way to go. Are you ready for the
Springbank 12?
Absolutely, yes. If we've got time, I don't want to.
Well,
it's much later for you. You're pushing midnight right now, so I don't want to keep you up much later. If you're, I don't know if you're a night owl, but if you're good, I'm good.
I'm a professional at this. Don't worry, Tim. We're fine.
All right, which
The late
batch of
night drams.
which batch of the
This,
12-year-old do you have?
well, I had two there, and I'm struggling to remember which one I brought down. I've got one from 2018 and one from 2020. I think yours is 2020, so I think that's the one I intended to grab.
Yes.
But I doubt it's going to be the same. Mine is now. I'm just going to struggle to see in this light. Looking for my phone, but I'm speaking to you on my phone to shine a light on it. But going from memory, it was January 2020.
Okay. So mine is October 2020. So I've got the 56.1%.
Oh, I can see it now. This is the 8th of January 2020.
All right.
20.
So you were batch one of 2020.
Of that year, 55.3 this one is, yeah.
Okay.
So, but it almost doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be certain boxes ticked with this bottle, regardless of what batch it is. Most of the time, they do kind of stray away from the kind of. It's become a bit less sherry forward over the years, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's still a fantastic pour. And yeah, despite the different cask makeup, I don't know what the cask makeup is on this one. I don't remember. There's not going to be people out there that know exactly what it is just by hearing the ABV at 55.3. But
yeah, mine was the like that Frankenstein cask makeup with like Bordeaux and Portwood and sherry and bourbon, which I really enjoy. And I'm looking up yours right now. So yours is 35% sherry, 65% expert.
So,
well, on the nose, I was struggling to find any sherry at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I've just come off the back of Ancnoc 24. But it's very fresh bourbon. But it's got that lovely. It's almost like someone's opened a drawer in a really old dresser or something that's been storing really old stuff, and a sense of kind of dank. The word in Scots is fusty, but still lovely. Lots of ripe plums, prunes, prune juice, spice. There's always spice, and this bottle's been open for a wee bit, so I think it's playing a wee bit softer than it normally would. But it's just terrific. Cheers, Tim.
Cheers
to safe travels.
Absolutely. Cheers.
You always forget how good it is, don't you?
You do.
Yeah. I mean, for me, Springbank 12 is essentially the perfect whiskey for me. It has the that intriguing Campbelltown funk, that dirtiness, gently peated, and just everything
about it is just so wonderful. Yeah, it's so dense. It's really quite rich, challenging, and at the same time, quite. I don't want to say easy, but comforting is maybe the best word for it. Right? It's just this. If you can adjust and enjoy 50% plus ABV spirits, I think you'll struggle to have a hard time with this whiskey, any of the batches that's been out, because it's so kind of rich and warm and interesting at every sip. It's just, and I think that's the word I'm looking for tonight, is something very comforting about it. Yes. The first sip I took from it tonight, again, you're just reminded, that's why you always try and keep a bottle, at least one bottle on the shelf, right? Yeah, it's really ridiculously hard to get a hold of now. It's just the way it is. But we need to remember it's the situation because of how good a job a distillery has done. That's what this is about. It's the enthusiasts have been talking about it for years. The wider market started to, as the community's grown and the wider market's grown and the word and the message got out there, people have been snapping it up, and Springbank continue to be, and they have been for a long time, a bit of a torchbearer for a lot of other producers. I hope. Yeah.
And the way I would describe it after my first sip was, Yeah, you said comforting. For me, it's like going home. It just feels like going back home. It's just so nice and pleasant. And it's I don't drink Springbank very often anymore because of the diminishing resources. So when you go back to it, it's always such a comforting feeling. It just feels it's like nostalgic almost.
Well, you can just drink it with impunity because you can just hop on a domestic flight down to Texas and relieve them of some of their stash, right?
Yes, yes. Again, it is easier to get Springbank in the United States, but the MSRP is significantly higher than it is in the UK. But at least I was able to get a couple of bottles of the 100% bourbon Springbank 12. So I'm happy that I have those to keep me busy.
Wow.
Terrific, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, superb.
yes.
Yeah, don't come to Scotland in the hope that you can buy Springbank unless you're going to Springbank. If you're
Yes.
going to Campbelltown, even if you walk into that shop and the shelves are relatively bare, there's not a lot around. They've got demijohns full of If you think this is densely flavoured and rich, the demijohns that you can bottle right there in the shop and take home cast strength deliciousness.
Now,
You're not entirely sure what the makeup is, but it matters.
I did was able to track down exactly what you're talking about.
long.
Perfect. That's exactly what that is. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, and I'm gonna. Oh, my brother's 40th birthday is this weekend, so I plan on.
Opening up this for that occasion.
Well, I think you're going to find that very comforting.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
All right, so I don't want to keep you on here too much longer because I know you're pushing midnight now, and you're on vacation right now. So here I am putting you back to work. So I'm going to ask you. You can't leave Scotland without doing so and so. So if you go to Scotland, what food can you not leave
Scotland without trying.
Well, the obvious thing to say would be haggis, but I assume you've maybe tried that before. But there's a fear around haggis. Oh, it's delicious, and most people that try it they either say, I think they're often let down that it's not offensive.
Mm-hmm.
It's just haggis is a peasant food. It's sausage meat. So any sausage that you've ever had is all the bits that you can't use as a fillet, it's all the bits that wasn't you. So they made sausages with it. So they had spices and other things, and that's exactly the same with haggis. So that there are oats in there, and it's spiced, and it's quite a loose meat. It's not compact. You can't slice it into thin slices like sausage meat. It's loose. So when you open it up, it's quite a loose thing. But you have it with nice vegetables. You have it with a nice sauce, maybe even a whiskey sauce, and it's so versatile. You can have it on bread. You can make pakora out of it. There's this fantastic Indian Scottish fusion haggis pakora, right? It's just a very versatile thing. And my kids, the girls are not fussy eaters, but my son is super fussy. But one of the things that the whole family will eat, not all the time, on occasion, is haggis. So you have to try haggis. But I think the other thing that I would try is maybe, we touched on the kind of Indian fusion thing. We've touched on the fact that you're going to come to Glasgow and have curry. That's absolutely a thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're out and about, and if you find yourself in rural restaurants, things like that, and you see things like venison on the menu, there's a very good chance that that's very local venison.
Okay.
Occasionally it might be the same depending on the time of year for salmon and things. But anything that's fresh, if you're near the coast and they offer you mussels, there's a very good chance. And the West Coast certainly, there's a very good chance that the mussels have literally been grown there. Anything like that, anything that's close. But I think that's true of anywhere that you travel to.
Yeah.
Even if it's food that you're familiar with, it's not going to be the same.
Yeah.
It's going to change up a wee bit. And if it's made there or here, that's the stuff to look for. But it's going to depend on your mood. Some people travel well and they can eat anything, but no problem at all. And other people travel like trees and they end up with their stomach isn't treating them well, or their energy is a bit down and things. So you're going to find that maybe you're just going to want to sit down with something a bit simple and familiar.
Oh, yeah.
But try and Eat haggis anywhere you can, but I think the best place to eat haggis would probably be in a restaurant that knows how to present it properly,
Okay. All right.
and not just kind of throw it at you as fast food or something.
So what's the proper way to present it? What am I looking for on the menu?
Well, a traditional way, if I talk about peasant food, that you would just simply have haggis
Okay.
on its own with mashed potatoes and mashed turnips. I think Swedes, you would call them, I think in the States they're called rutabaga.
Okay.
Is
Yeah.
that what you call it? It's a root vegetable, you peel it and mash it. It's
Yeah.
orange coloured. The flesh is orange coloured. So we call it neeps. So you would have that potato, neeps and tatties, we would say, with haggis. That's the most traditional way. But haggis works really well for me with a cream-based sauce, whiskey,
Oh, yeah.
peppercorn, anything like that.
Yeah.
Green veg, steamed vegetables. Yeah, by all means, mashed potato, neeps, the traditional way, whatever. But it's best if it's mixed up. You know, that's the best way to have it.
All right. No, that sounds great. And yeah, no, and I honestly, I when I went to Scotland the first time, I did not have haggis, so I definitely need to add that to my list this trip. I can't leave Scotland without trying.
And so it'll definitely be on my list.
Don't be afraid of it. It's a lot of nonsense.
Yeah.
In fact, it's not nonsense. It's a very clever marketing
It
technique.
is.
Because I'm sure that they sell a lot more of it based on its horrible reputation than if it was just, oh yeah, it's just sausage meat.
Yeah. And Gregor suggested another good thing to try is black pudding from Stornoway.
Yeah, Stornoway has so the best black pudding I've ever had was very small slices of it in the bed and breakfast the first time I ever went to Islay.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked the woman in the hotel that we were staying in, is this Islay black pudding? And she went, oh yes. She said, oh yes, it is. I said, where'd you get this? And she told me where to go. She sent me to the butcher on Islay to get it. And I went round and I said, I'm here to pick up some of I'm going home today. I'm here to pick up some of your Islay black pudding. And he said, you've got no chance, son. I said, oh, what, you don't sell it to me? And he said, Islay, there's no such thing. He says, are you after some of this? And he held up exactly the stuff that we'd been served, and it was Stornoway.
Mm-hmm.
It was Stornoway black pudding. So Gregor's absolutely right. It's stunning, literally. You know what black pudding is, right?
Well, that was actually going to be my next question. What is black pudding for those who don't know? That's different from blood sausage, right? Those are two different things. Are they?
No, it's the same. It's like I say, it's going to be different. You think it's familiar to you, but it's going to be different.
Okay.
And in Spain, they have the same thing. They call it morcilla in Spain, but it's different. It tastes different. They've got paprika and things in there. We don't. It's blood sausage, and it's typically served in slices. So it's a big sausage that's sliced. The one I was talking about is a smaller one. But yeah, you have to try that too. It's quite a rich, earthy flavour. If you've tried blood sausage, you'll have a rough idea what the flavour is like. But it's on theme with haggis.
Okay.
It's something to try. It's a breakfast thing, but with salmon, egg. We have another thing called potato scones. It's flat bread that's made with potato. In fact, all of these things together, it's fabulous. In fact, I'm hungry now.
You can see if you find a nice midnight place to go pick up some of these foods.
Yeah. See what's in the fridge.
No.
I'll have some of it now. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
that does sound great. I'll definitely try both of those. I'll let you know what my experience is trying these for the first time. And I'll have a couple more questions before I let you go for the evening. So that's the one food or the couple of foods that you say you must have going to Scotland. Where would you, let's say you only have a couple of days in Scotland, what should you visit before you leave Scotland? What's whether it's a historical monument, whether it's a natural wonder, is there one thing in Scotland that people need to
be before they leave?
Again, it's much like the context and the moment and the mood of the day, like I was talking about with the distillery visits. Hopefully you're going to get a nice drive through Glencoe. Glencoe's a funny one because Glencoe on a sunny day is pretty and nice. But for me, my favourite Glencoe is when it's moody and changeable. And you can almost look down to the west through Glencoe, the glen itself, and see the the weather front's coming in as it sweeps through the glen, and that I quite like. There's quite a dark, you know, troublesome, almost moody feel to Glencoe at times. So you're already doing that. That'll be nice. But you never know what's going to be around the corner, what the weather's going to bring, what that time of year is going to bring. Everything's starting to change seasonally. I mean, I was only away for 3 weeks, and I came back, and it's shocking. Everything is just so overgrown right now. It's just that time of year where all the green is just, everything is drooping because there's so much greenery right now, and there's been so much rain to support it. So it's just seasonally, it's going to change. Wherever you're going to be, if you're in Edinburgh, you're maybe going to want to take a look at the castle, but you'll be with 1,000 other people doing the same things. You're going to want to do these things, but you're just going to stumble across. People have been in Scotland for thousands of years, and they've left markers, significant markers. And despite the rain and the weather, a lot of these markers are still there to find. You just take your time and enjoy it and relax. You can spend your evening swatting up for the next day and working out all the spots that you're going to go to, but then it becomes a checklist, doesn't it? So just kind of go with it. I would say no to that.
Okay.
I would say just wherever you're going to be, know that you're just trying it on to see how it fits.
Yeah.
Probably you're going to be coming back again and getting to continue to wear it in the future.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm already coming back. This will be my second time, so and I doubt it'll be my last time. So there's just so much to see, and it's got such a deep and rich history too, and so much you can learn and just embrace and just feel that long culture and the impact with everything.
One thing I would say is maybe don't pass up an opportunity to take a boat trip.
Yeah.
So if you're passing, if you see that somebody's doing boat trips out in Campbelltown Harbour or something, or Loch Lomond, if you're passing Loch Lomond or any of the lochs where they've got boats and you can take a trip, because seeing the landscape from the water is different, and it's a nice thing to do. It's a nice, and yet the forcing yourself to slow down because you're in a very small space. That's a boat trip would be a nice change of pace. That would be. I'm not fussy on what kind of boat it is, but that would be a good thing to do.
All right, yeah, no, absolutely. To see the
coastline, the rugged Scottish coastline from the sea would be a great way to kind of embrace and fully immerse yourself in the landscape for sure. All right, I'll get you out of here on this last question, just kind of a fun question. If you had to describe yourself as a whiskey, which whiskey would you be?
Oh my goodness! Did you come up with this question?
I reworded it from another podcaster that I listened to, who talks about cuisine, and he asked his guests which cuisine would they be if they had to describe themselves as a cuisine. So I'm
whiskey.
Oh my goodness! I would be a whiskey that is demonstrably old, but probably behaves and on the palate comes across a lot younger than it actually is. Not because I do, but in my own head, I'm a lot younger, still very immature. So what whiskey would that be? Something that needs a long time to mature, I think. Oh, I don't know. I would be. That's so hard.
That is. You can think about it for a while, and we can touch base again.
No, I'm just going to commit to something just for the sake of it, because I would be a Southern Highlander.
All right.
I think I would be, just because of where I was born and brought up and things. So let's go with Blair Athol.
All right. So,
and I'd really be. It would be, if I had to continue to answer that question any further, it would become very contrived. So, but that's a really tough question. So yeah, something that is old but probably plays a little younger.
All right,
So Roy in whiskey form is Blair Ethel. That's great. No.
Well, on this particular Wednesday night, let's say.
we'll revisit it on a future live stream for sure.
It'll be different every time for sure.
Yes. Anyways, Roy, I want to thank you again for staying up so late, joining me on this live stream. Hopefully you had a good time hanging out, drinking whiskey. And hopefully you're available on that evening that we're going to be in Glasgow. I'd love to meet up with you in person, share a dram. And if you have bad things to say about Obsession of India, we can always change course. And you're welcome to join us for dinner too. So, whatever you happen to have going on that evening, just let us know and we'll try.
No, I won't have bad things to say about anything. I'll have a look into it for you. I'm sure you've chosen and picked very, very well. You've done your homework. But if that's where you're going to be, then maybe if I remain free for that night, that would be amazing for me to come along and hang out with you guys. But also the bonus of trying a curry is always a pleasure.
Absolutely.
That would be tremendous. But Tim, thanks for thinking about me and thanks for inviting me on. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And enjoy a few drams as we do so.
Yeah.
And everybody that dropped in to hang out with us as well. Tremendous.
Yeah, no, it's great always having people contribute and chat alongside with us. So thank you. And hopefully we can do this again a few months down the road. And hopefully we'll meet up in person in a few months or in a few weeks.
I would look forward to that, definitely.
All right. Yes, all right. Have a good night. Cheers.
Cheers, Tim.